Now that we have our embossed unicorn, we're going to build up the background, and to do this we need some scrap paper. Well, actually some clean white paper. If it's got any ink or other things on it, it might not work very well for this. And what I'm going to do is cut myself a curve which will be a hill. Now it doesn't need to have much of a curve on it because it will show up, and we're just going to put this on here just so that the feet of the unicorn are showing there. Now I'm using a pigment ink to do this. You can use dye inks, but pigment inks do blend very nicely, and if you make mistakes or you get harsh lines you can usually blend them out. So I'm going to start with a yellowy shade, a sort of greeny shade of yellow or a yellowy shade of green, and I'm just going to start building up some grass on the background here, and you can see I'm using a stylus tool, which is a flat tipped sponge, and that allows me to just blend any marks out that get a nice sort of mottled random effect. So I'm going to do this all the way along. And this is just my base layer. I'm just holding this piece of paper in place to act as a mask. Okay, so I've just got that base layer down, and then I'm going to move on to the next shade of green, and I'm not going to clean the sponge here because I'm going from light to dark. So I'm just picking up a different shade of green here and just working that as well over the top. Right, now there's the first layer, so we've got our unicorn standing on a little bit of a hill, and we're going to add to that with, I can use the same piece of paper just to give a slightly shaped hill in the foreground here, and again I'm sticking with this second shade of green, this slightly darker shade of green. I'm just emphasising where the paper is just to give it the illusion of a little hill. So there you've got a little hill coming down in the foreground there. And you can play around at this stage, and really you can build as many layers as you want. You can cut different shapes from your paper, so you might want to make a steeper hill. Put another one down here. And now I'm just going to be careful not to cross over, because we don't want to crisscross in the foreground. Just gives the illusion of another hill there. So you can see how we're building that up. Now the next thing, it's important, is to just ground the unicorn and make sure that he's not looking like he's floating on mid-air. And one of the interesting things about colour theory is you can actually use the opposite of a colour to give the illusion of a shadow. So the opposite of green is red, and it might sound strange, but if I pick up the red, I can actually just put a little bit of shading underneath the unicorn. I'm just going to turn it around so I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to take most of the red off the sponge, so I've just got a little tiny bit. Make sure how that's coming out. And just underneath his hooves, I'm just going to use the tip to give a little bit of a shadow there. You can see that there, and then I'm going to blend that in with the green over the top, so the green and the red together will give the depth that makes it look like a shadow. So again, you can carry on building that up. That just gives the depth that's needed to make him look like he's standing on a solid surface. Right, next thing we do is the sky, and we do that in pretty much the same way. So this time I'm going to use a different tool with the blue. I'm also just going to clean up the green that's on this non-stick craft sheet, because if I don't I could pick that up as well. And then we'll just add some blue for the sky. Now this time I'm going to start at the top and just bring the colour down and let it fade to white before it meets the hill, and that way I don't have to worry about masking off the hill and making the blue match it exactly. You can do that if you want to, but I find it's easy to just let the whole thing just fade as it meets the sky. Now you could watch me do all of this, or I can bring in the one that I did earlier and you can see what the finished version looks like.